Good evening. My name is Councillor Anthony Kelly. I'll be chairing this evening's licensing committee held virtually Tuesday, the 20th of February, 2024. So before we go to minutes, I do not have any apologies for absence. So hopefully members who aren't here at the moment will be able to join us shortly. So we'll go to the agenda item of the minutes. So we have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. That's the substantive minutes. Thank you very much for preparing them, Cornelia. You've done a perfect services team. Do we have any comments or any comments on the minutes? If not, I'll take them as agreed.
Yes, hi, good evening, Anthony. Hi, everyone.
Yeah.
Can I checked the minutes from the last meeting and my
I'm sorry, I don't know who's, I've got a lot of people. Oh, hi. Yes, hi. Yes, welcome.
I didn't see my name as apologies for last time. I've just recently had a baby and was on maternity. I was just wondering if that was documented as an apology for last meeting.
It probably wasn't, because unless I would have received that from you, I wouldn't have passed them on. But it can be noted now.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Obviously, unless as much as I'm aware of you on maternity leave, it wouldn't have formed part of my thinking when saying the minutes. But yes, it can be recorded retrospectively in these minutes. That's great. Anybody else? No, that's great. So I'll take that as agreed by the committee. Thank you very much for that. So we have a presentation today from Mr. Conor McDonough, who will introduce himself and where he falls in the hierarchy of the council and his team. And it's Ealin's new evening and nighttime economy strategy, which may well be referred to ENTES. So if he says ENTES, you know what it means, draft engagement plan. So we'll take questions at the end. But if somebody's got something really pressing that they need to ask, you can indicate and we can take some interventions. So yeah, Conor, if you'd like to introduce yourself, your team, and present the report. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Kelly. Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Conor McDonough. I'm the Assistant Director for Economic Growth at Ealing Council, sitting within the Economy and Sustainability Directorate, reporting to Peter George, who's the Strategic Director for that Directorate. I've also got on the call with myself today, Andrea Laffey, who is a Principal Regeneration Investment and Jobs Officer, who will talk us through the actual engagement strategy that's within the papers. And I've also got Abel also, who's supporting Andrea on the new ENTES. I haven't said that before, Councillor Kelly, so I'll say it from
now. Well, please, yeah, it's entirely up to you. Yeah, we've got enough acronyms. You don't need to have one, but
yeah. So that's us. And probably just worth mentioning for the benefit of colleagues in the call is that the department is going through a restructure as well. So on the 11th of March, we'll have a formal new department called Regeneration, Economy and Skills, which has brought together economic growth and employment and skills. And yeah, we've been doing that restructure over the last, or reorganization process over the last few months. And that's coming to an end in the next few weeks. So yeah, Andrew's perhaps just going to share the screen and we can scroll through the actual paper just to the salient points of the paper. We're not going to go through the whole paper because we assume people have read it, but we can just maybe scroll through to the key points of the paper and then invite any questions on that. But while Andrea is sharing that screen, I'll just give a bit of an update of what's been going on.
Sorry, Conor, just to jump in. I've just tried to share my screen, but it's
try again.
Disabled. Okay, great.
I have allowed you now. Try again.
Great,
thank you. So while Andrew's doing that, I'll just give a bit of an update on where we're at. So we were at the licensing committee late last year when we confirmed that the team would be taking this project on. So working closely with Jess Murray, the Department of Economic Growth Service is leading on this project. So what's been going on in the background over the last couple of months is just getting the project mobilized and starting a few key work streams within that project. Obviously working with Councillor Brett also, who is our cabinet member for decent living incomes, where this sort of project primarily sits as well. So we've been having quite a number of conversations with key stakeholders and key partners. Just to name a few of those, we've been meeting with the GLA. So I actually had a quick chat with Amy LeMay, who's the nighttime czar, to give her an update that we were producing this, and she was very keen that her team engaged with us to support us in this, so that's good. We've also been having conversations with counterparts at the London Borough of Wandsworth, because they have recently produced a nighttime economy strategy.
Sorry to interrupt you, Connor.
Yeah.
We sort of have it, but
Okay.
We've got all the stuff around the margins. I wonder if Cornelia might be able to tidy that up for us. Or
yeah. Okay. So yeah. Sorry, Cornelia.
Do you mean the top bit above?
Well, I can see Calibri inserts. All the sort of editing.
Yeah.
So can you? Oh, I see.
Andrea, yeah. If you just get rid of the taskbar, in the view.
Is that better? But can you see tracked changes? Is that what?
No, not on this page anyway. Not on the first page.
No.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, that's good.
So just to continue my train of thought, so we were having meetings. I mentioned GLA, I mentioned Wandsworth. Their evening nighttime economy strategy is very much an exemplar that many local authorities are looking to, and we've had meetings with colleagues at Wandsworth, particularly getting some of their steers and insights on how we can develop a really comprehensive and inclusive engagement approach, which Andy will talk about in this particular paper here. Also meeting with key partners such as Heathrow, where there's lots of nighttime workers within the borough. Similarly, OPDC and Park Royal, where there's lots of nighttime workers as well. And engaging through our High Streets Task Force as well, particularly dealing with leisure and recreational activities on the high streets, how that can interface with this. And a number of other key partners also. In the background, we've also, led by Andrea, we've been collecting a lot of key data and evidence. So we're not starting from scratch here. We've got lots of data, particularly through the local plan process, where we've had over 12,000 responses to the local plan, and many of those responses do pick up on issues that are quite linked to the nighttime economy, which is really helpful. Working with Jess Murray and his team as well on all the data they've been collecting in regards to violence against women and girls, which is really important. Data from transport and highways colleagues as well about how we make our streets safer and promote active travel. That's just to name but a few. There's lots of data sets we've been pulling together. In addition to that, we have started drafting actual strategy in the background as well. So there's a strategy being drafted at the moment, but we're not preempting anything, obviously. We still have to go through a very comprehensive engagement process, which we aim to kick off in later this month, and we can pick up on that. And in terms of the timetable going forward, we're in regular dialogue with Jess Murray, because we understand the need to get the strategy produced in a timely fashion to support what you need to be doing, Councillor Kelly, and your colleagues regarding licensing. So the current timetable is that we'll have a draft strategy completed probably in May, and we will have that going to a June cabinet, and then after that it'll be going for a formal consultation before final adoption. But we'll certainly have the draft strategy ready for May, and that some weight could be applied to that draft strategy to help inform decisions as well, which is helpful. So I'll stop there, Councillor Kelly, and I'm going to invite Andrea in to not scroll through the whole of this document, but maybe just pick up on the key salient points within it, and then leave some time for questions from yourself, Councillor, and everybody else on the call. So I'll hand over to Andrea now. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Connor, and good evening, everyone. So yes, the draft engagement plan, it is a working document, but there's a lot of work that's gone into it so far. I suppose the key sort of thing around this is that we want to be very inclusive and reach out to all of the different audiences that there are. So that includes the local residents, community groups, workers, nighttime visitors, businesses, and also businesses that aren't based in Ealing who might like to come here. So we're looking at this as an opportunity to revise the licensing policies, working with our colleagues in licensing, but also use this as a way of really sort of improving the offer in our town centres and kind of diversifying and using this as an opportunity for creating more good jobs in this nighttime economy sector. So we're reaching out across the whole borough through these different surveys that we have been drafting. Our objective really is to ensure that everyone is fully engaged and that we are making best use of all the different channels that are already available. So that includes meetings and events that are already happening across the borough, so we can engage with groups that way, and also create our own sort of engagement process. And one of the main event around that will be the Thursday Lates programme, which I'll come on to in a bit. So this document really sort of goes through the process of identifying who our key audiences are, what we want to really seek to understand from each of those groups. And we also are engaging, as Conor mentioned, with key stakeholders and agencies to ensure that we are, looking at taking a strategic look at the borough and what our needs are. So we'll be, as well as undertaking surveys, comprehensive surveys, we'll be holding sort of meetings and focus group sessions with a range of key stakeholders, as highlighted here. So obviously there's been a lot of engagement that's already happened. So as Conor said, we'll be drawing on that. So any sort of relevant key stats that have come through from all of these engagement activities that have happened, will be making sure is fed into the strategy. And we are looking at using sort of key networks to help us reach out to specific groups and make sure that this consultation is reaching out to people who wouldn't necessarily normally respond to this type of consultation. So we want it to be as inclusive as possible. I'm going to scroll through to just quickly talk about the engagement proposal for the Late Night Thursdays programme. So we know that to get the best method of engagement, we know that we want to actually be out in various different settings, and the idea here is that we put on a series of events that appeal to a range of different people and demographics across the borough, held on Thursday, all Thursdays in April, at different venues in Ealing Broadway. These are the different activities that we are suggesting we could put on with key partners. So I'm in discussion with Open Ealing, Make It Ealing Bid, and others, Pitshanger Gallery, to kind of work on putting this on. And the idea is that this is a way of sort of testing new and different activities that could take place on a longer term basis in the borough, but also as a platform for us to engage and encourage people to complete the surveys. So we're not just relying on people looking at our website to find that information out. Yes, I just explained a bit more about that. So the methodology, we've got here a table which shows all the different audiences and the different channels that we'll be using to reach out. And one of the key methods of engagement is through the Built ID digital survey platform. And towards the end of the document, in the appendices, we've set out 2 draft surveys, which one is for residents, visitors, and nighttime workers, and the other for businesses. It is a work in progress survey, that the version that's in this document. We are in the process of refining some of those questions and designing it into the new Built ID system, which my colleague Abel who's on the call, is in the process of designing. What we've realised through refining this further is that it will be better for us to undertake 3 surveys and separate out the nighttime worker survey questions, because there are a set of different questions that we've realised that we'd like to ask them that aren't all relevant to the visitors for the town centres. We want to take a particular focus on reaching out to nighttime workers in their work settings. So we're working on a strategy for engaging with the major employers of nighttime workers in different areas in the borough, and also in particular with young people. So we're engaging with the universities and colleges in the borough to make sure that we can be as inclusive as we can with their students. Yes, I think this is the key things I've covered. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I've got you there, Julian. Let me just have a look. And yeah, at the moment, Councillor Gallant. So yeah, obviously this is sort of any questions on the draft itself, but before they sort of want to have a discussion, debate about it slightly, we'll do that afterwards. Thank you, Councillor Gallant.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, thank you very much. That's very interesting. And thanks for going through it. I just wanted, I saw one line on the new town forums. That is a big policy. We don't know quite what shape it's taking, but you did mention it. And I just wondered if you want to elaborate. Has there been any thought gone into that?
We have, and we've been engaging with our colleagues in the community engagement team that are working on developing the town forums. At the moment, I understand they are still going through their consultation process for determining the best type of forum that the town forums would basically take shape in. What we're planning to do with those colleagues, because they're running various consultation events linked to the development of the town forums, we will be joining up with them at some of their events. So that's the sort of reference there. I don't think there are any town forum sort of physical meetings that will be set up during this time frame, but we'll definitely be joining them with their consultations.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks.
Yeah, I think that commitment to join in with them when they're arranged, I think would be very, very useful.
Absolutely.
You'll be able to reach out to those people. Councillor Shaw.
Yes, thanks, Chair. Sorry, just realised that I am extremely shadowed. Hang on, just let me stop.
It's an improvement.
Yeah, I mean that's probably made it worse. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, thanks. I mean it's an interesting, very, very interesting start here, and I'm pleased to hear about the engagement and consultation that'll be going on. I was just wondering a little bit around the audits that are mentioned. You know, it says for audits in Acton, Ealing, and Southall as the towns. Obviously, you know, we do have the 7 towns in Ealing, and I just sort of wanted to make sure really that that places don't get left behind. So sort of whether it be Hanwell or Greenford, that focus is taken away by looking particularly, obviously Ealing is the sort of main town centre, if you like, and that other places just don't get left behind. And then just in terms of reviewing it, and this is perhaps a little bit for debate later on, Chair, so I might be jumping the gun, apologies if I am. But I'm sort of thinking of, where do we go from here once the engagement's done, and what does success look like, and how is it being measured? So, once this strategy is in place in the summer, as was laid out in the timetable, perhaps in June or July, then what are the plans for reviewing it and just seeing how effective this strategy is over the longer term?
Yeah, so with regards to the audits, we did take a sort of an approach of looking at the different areas across the borough and working out where we felt were the biggest sort of nighttime economy areas. We felt that Northolt, Greenford and Perivale may not be, the purpose of doing the audit may not be as quite as strong as the nighttime offer, certainly in the sort of leisure areas, is not on the same scale as you have in the metropolitan town centre, and indeed in Acton and Hanwell. We can revisit that, though. We can look at the idea, because obviously there are areas, a lot of areas in Greenford, Northolt and Perivale that are the industrial areas that are employing many nighttime workers. So perhaps we could do more focused audits in those areas. But we'll take that back and review that. Thank you.
Yeah. Can I just come in, Andrea?
Yeah.
Thank you for that. I think you've answered. Just want to elaborate a little bit further. That's all. I think when we were discussing this, there's probably potentially two types of audit, I guess, if you will. It's probably worth reminding folk on the call that we did submit a couple of, I think it was 2022, so maybe 2 years, well, maybe 18 months ago, we did submit a bid to the GLA for Ealing Metropolitan Centre to become a nighttime economy zone. So that was a new initiative that was set up by the Mayor of London. Unfortunately, we just missed out on that, and we had feedback from Amy Lamé, the Night Czar, and her team, saying that we just missed out at that time, but certainly in round two, it'd be worthwhile revisiting that. And in developing that bid, we sort of realised that Ealing Metropolitan Centre has to be a destination, again, for the nighttime economy. I think in the past it was quite strong, and there's lots of anecdotal evidence that it's weakened in more recent years, but we want to get that back up to where it should be, punching above its weight as a metropolitan centre and providing more nighttime economy uses, particularly for recreation and maybe late licensing. The other key areas that you referred to, Councillor Shaw, like Southall, again, an area of transformational growth, Elizabeth Line there, lots of new development happening, the Green Quarter site coming online as well. So there's a real sort of need there as well to refresh and reinvigorate the nighttime economy from those sort of leisure and recreation uses. Acton as well is another obvious one, but more recently we were having conversations around the role of North Acton. We have regular conversations with key landowners and stakeholders there, in particular Imperial College, who've got a lot of students there. And there's quite a high density of student development there, but if you walk around North Acton, the amenities aren't really there for those students. So we do feel that there's an opportunity there to have that as a bit of a nighttime hotspot as well. But in terms of those areas that Andrea mentions, well, like Greenford, Perivale and Northolt, it's perhaps a different type of audit they need, maybe some more localized nighttime economy to support the nighttime workers, but also in terms of a more localized nighttime offer as well, as compared to those large areas, which maybe have a more destination, like a West London destination, if not a London destination approach. So that's the sort of way we can take that comment away to ensure we get the right balance of audit. Hopefully that was okay, Andrew. Was just sort of elaborating on the conversations recently.
Conor or Andrea, I mean, I was just going through the list of places, and you've noted Perivale and Greenford industrial areas, but the Greenford industrial area close to Greenford Station, it's also very close to Greenford Quay, yeah, that they have, unless I'm mistaken, they haven't been referenced, and they're a place, so it's quite a heavily curated area. And I just wondered sort of how much outreach and liaison are we doing with those types of places? So, for example, you've mentioned Dickens Yard, but places where we're not the landowner, I mean, in a sense, they could do the work for us. So, what are we doing in that field? And just when it comes to the Pitshanger Park, more of a question perhaps for the licensing team, but will we be anticipating some temporary event notice applications, and are we prepared for them?
So with regards to Greenford Quay, that's a really good point. I guess we hadn't sort of, as Conor mentioned, we were thinking a lot more about the sort of the metropolitan town centre and thinking about the destination as Ealing as the destination, but we can certainly include the Greenford Quay area. That's a good point. Pitshanger, I'm not quite so sort of.
No, I was on about the Pitshanger Park late night Thursday. I'm referring to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Late night Thursday. Like, are we likely to get TENS applications, and if so, what's, without prejudice, without taking decisions. I just thought I'd put it out there.
Yeah.
That businesses may be looking for TENS applications on that evening.
Yeah, for sure. And any sort of evening activity will make sure that it's in line with getting the relevant TENS, etc. for that. I just realised that there was another part to the question that I didn't answer previously with regards to what's going to happen after the strategy has been
please go ahead. Sorry,
completed. And so the way I see it, and I think this is still to be discussed, but I know that the strategy is going to really sort of bring forward some key recommendations for projects and initiatives going forward. So we will need to then look at how we could potentially resource those and take those forward. And yeah, then I think the strategy itself will obviously be used to inform the licensing policy, as we know that is required by our colleagues in the licensing team. But we'll also then be using that to have conversations with businesses that we might like to encourage to come and base in Ealing. So through the Good for Ealing Inward Investment Programme, we'll be using the nighttime economy strategy to as part of the inward investment work going forward. Conor, I don't know if you wanted to sort of add anything to that.
Yeah, I think you've covered pretty much everything there. Just to reinforce the point that a really important metric that we'll be working on already exists within the council plans, was about supporting 10,000 new jobs into the borough. So we feel that with a quite an ambitious nighttime economy strategy, which is focusing on the local economies of each of the 7 towns, we can maybe up the number of people working in that sector to again support those 10,000 new jobs. That's a key metric that will be helping us decide on what successful looks like also. And we'll have to work, and as Andrew said, we do need to figure out other key metrics, but we'll have to do that in very close engagement with Jess Murray and his team to make sure we tick all the boxes that are required in that regulatory space as well.
Thank you very much, Conor. Councillor Driscoll, Paul?
Thanks, Chair. I was just looking through the different range of engagements, and I think that sort of younger profile is often missed, but I was really pleased to see that there was this particular target for the student profile, which are institution based and accessible in a certain place at a certain time. But the range of activities could catch the sort of post-student sort of 30s, which are often not connected to an institution or a place, but sort of young working people that are often missed in our consultations. So I was pleased that looking for the sort of wider age demographic was in there, so that was good to see. So I was just sort of recognizing that, and it was great to see that work has gone into looking at a wide range of catching a whole sort of slew of different people and different users of the nighttime economy. So that was good. So thank you. Chair, just sort of flag up, Councillor Ball has had his hand up as well. If you might.
He has, sorry, because it's on. I've just noticed that, but because it's on a yellow background, his hands. Yeah.
Just let you know. Thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Ball. Can't hear you now. You had your chance.
There we go. Right. Yeah. So yeah, the Green Quarter in Southall will be the other private curated space with increasingly large numbers of residents to add to the list that you raised, Chair. And then I had a few points, mostly more around Ealing Broadway. So yeah, I welcome the night walks with local councillors as part of the engagement process. That would be interesting. Thursday Lates are very good, building on what Pitshanger has been doing, and especially with activities that aren't all related to alcohol. And I wondered whether you'd talk to the two cinemas in Ealing Broadway about having later screenings on those nights, and tying that into this programme. But yeah, returning to alcohol, one thing that when I talk to younger people that comes up, I know some younger people don't drink nowadays, but the ones that do, there is a shortage of nightclubs in Broadway. There's the Red Rooms, which is threatened with the new British Land development, and there's what's now called the Stack that used to be Cavalieri, which is more of a late bar than a proper club. So I don't know if that's something that the strategy will be looking at. And also the other thing that gets raised by a different demographic, not that I can afford it, but there is some demand for kind of high-end independent restaurants in Ealing, like there are in Chiswick. That's the other thing that some people bring up.
Great,
Thank you. So high-end restaurants and nightclubs.
Yeah, so with regards to the surveys that we're doing, we will be asking questions to find out what it is that people would like to see in Ealing, and so those will be covered through that. And with regards to the later evenings with the cinemas, they are we will be talking to them to ask if that's possible for them to be participating like that, for sure.
And just to build on what Andrea said, and Andrea's already said this previously, we're also using this as an opportunity as an inward investment tool as well. So there's probably really interesting restaurants and potential nightclubs that operate in London outside Ealing, and perhaps they haven't looked at Ealing previously. But we want to showcase Ealing to them as part of our Good for Ealing inward investment programme, and create connections between those late night providers and existing landlords and developers who are building within the borough, to try and do that brokerage service to say, well, within your basement or within your commercial floor area, why not have one of these restaurants or a late night sort of license for an interesting club to diversify and bring that vitality back to the town centre. So certainly that's something we'll be working hard on as well.
Thank you. Okay, so I mean, not so much a formal debate, but if people sort of want to make sort of comments in generally about this, I mean, I'll start off. So hopefully it gives you a flavour of what hopefully well, let me just go. It is sort of a question, but what I think is going to, if this is going to be meaningful, we have to be asking people what they will want to use in the town centre, not what they think other people want. So it's important that, if my son is being asked as an 18-year-old, what would you use if it existed in Ealing Broadway Town Centre or Greenford Quay, etc., as where what my idea of what's good in Ealing Broadway may not necessarily be something that I would use. So it doesn't actually create any opportunity. You know, I might want something, but I would never use it. So, and I think when we're talking to the local residents, we have to be mindful of that. It's not about what they think is necessarily best for the area. It's what they would use in the area. What would add value to them to use. And reaching out to all those audiences that Paul's referred to just moments ago as well. That's very important. So that was sort of like just a briefly what came to mind. I think it's very important to have this moving forward, so that when we do our statement of licensing, we can incorporate all the new. We can tag this business model onto our licensing policy and decision making, but we may come to discussing more of that in the future meetings. Councillor Shaw.
Yes, thanks, Chair. Just coming in on this and just sort of having a little think and reflection on it. I'm sort of wondering what support and what we could offer as the council as well, or as a local authority, for the existing premises that are there. So, I mean, it was sort of highlighted, for example, Pithanger Manor already running Thursday late, but I'm thinking of other venues that are already in place, like the Questors Theatre and things like that, you know, and what sort of help or support, you know, our role, obviously, of course, I know we're limited by finances and what's available, but, you know, how can we facilitate, you know, other whether it's private, voluntary sector places to further develop their offer?
Sure. Just obviously, we don't need necessarily an answer to that at quite the moment, but Councillor Gallant.
You know, it's very annoying when your line is completely stolen. I was going to say exactly the same thing, but a little bit more for my cultural hat and the cultural program. There's a great opportunity to link the cultural offer together. So, I mean, yeah, Questors Theatre, you know, Ealing Youth Orchestra, you know, Ealing Symphony Orchestra, all these groups that are appearing in cultural venues. And also, building the links around the borough. And I'm actually myself, even though I'm an Broadway councillor, obviously very keen to, you know, see what happens in Ealing, in the centre of Ealing, but also to get that nightlife diversified out to Greenford, Northolt, Southall, and Perivale, which at the moment are rather sort of, you know, are rather lacking in it. Does that make sense? So I think it's a good thing as. I think it's a good thing in terms of finding.
So you could have
those town forums, which, I mean, I just wish that program was more advanced, because I think, you know, that is, you know, that's a central policy, but we know very little about it, how it might manifest yet. But I think that's going to be a critical thing as we move forward.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, got nobody indicating. Andrea or Connor, or any member of your team, did you want to respond to any of those points?
Yeah, I can come in quickly. I think really important to raise the link with culture. We obviously, well, not our team in particular, but we were supporting Chris Bunting's team in preparing the London Borough of Culture bid. And there's lots of really good evidence and great initiatives coming through that we will be interfacing with as part of this evening nighttime economy strategy. We also, we've nearly finished production of a cultural infrastructure plan as well, which picks up some of the things that Councillor Gallant has just referred to. So again, yeah, there'll be all that interface will happen and that integration will happen as well. So we really want to make the best of our cultural assets, make them work harder and provide more for Ealing residents and beyond Ealing as well. So that's certainly a key point we're picking up. Andrea or Abel, I'm not sure if you want to add anything to that. That's covered it.
I think you've covered it, yeah. But just to say, with regards to sort of engaging with the Cresses Theatre and how we can sort of support them, that's very much what we're planning to do. Where we can, we want to promote. I know that the Cresses Theatre have a lot going on during March and April, so we'll be using our Thursday Lates kind of program as a way to help promote their offer as well. So yeah, it's very much our intention to do that.
Okay. So yeah, obviously you can all feed into the nighttime strategy through the officers here, Connor and Andrea, and any thoughts? I'm sure there'll be welcome. So 1943, so I think 40 minutes. I think that covers that, unless we've got any other indications. Thank you, Connor. Thank you, Andrea, and your team for presenting that report. And we'll have more in May, I guess.
That's right, Councillor Kelly. Thank you. I think the next time we meet, we'll have a draft strategy to talk through, which will be exciting. So
yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep,
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, James, Mr. Hughes. Welcome back. After,
thank you, Councillor.
did you have a moustache last year? I'm not sure you did.
Huh? Well, you know, I can't remember. I might have.
Anyway.
When I'm back next year, you can see the full beard. We'll
Yeah.
see how things are.
Yeah, might be in a different room. Is it just you from the
Yes. Emma Williamson, our director of planning, had a conflicting meeting. So just
no, it's okay. Just I've got the screen in front of me. Before you start off, it's important to know who the stakeholders are. So yes, welcome. You can cover perhaps what you did last year and tell us anything new.
Sure. I'm just going to share my screen for members here, and then. Just checking. You can all see that?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
Yes, now we can.
Now you can.
Good.
So just before you start, James, I thought that was it. But just sort of subcommittee members be mindful of sort of subcommittee hearings that may be in front of us quite closely, to not to refer to them in the specifics. So if there's particular venues that you know there's applications, it's best that we don't refer to them specifically. I mean, that goes for any discussion really, but obviously shisha lounges in Park Royal are a particularly fractious places. So with that, thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Kelly. Like I say, good evening to members. I'm James Hughes, so I'm the head of planning enforcement and compliance with OPDC. As Councillor Kelly flags up, I've met most of the members last year, whether or not I had a mustache, when OPDC did an update for Ealing licensing. So I'm pleased to be back, and just to give you an update as to where things are going with respect to OPDC's unauthorized shisha lounges. So as last year, a very quick introduction to OPDC itself. As members are likely aware, OPDC was created by the Mayor of London in 2015, in part to maximize the development opportunities presented by HS2. And a list of our planning functions is set out as per the slide. So we work quite closely with our host boroughs, and there's overlap between planning and licensing, and that's part of our joint working. So right here, let's see if I can move the slides. There we go. So again, as last year, a quick summary about shisha lounges themselves, and what are they, and how we work with the host boroughs to address these unauthorized uses. as per the slide, shisha smoking is something that can form part of a lawful use and it may not need planning permission. But where shisha lounges feature as part of nighttime entertainment venues, or they predominate within restaurants or cafe uses, they generally need planning consent. I would sort of preface what I'm talking about here as a little bit separate from the types of nighttime economy uses that Connor's team was talking about earlier in the evening. These are almost without exception sites that are within OPDC's protected industrial sites. So while Connor's team is talking about drawing high quality nightclub uses into Ealing's town centers as something that's vibrant and positive, that's improving the nighttime economy, these types of nightclub uses tend to be totally unregulated, and they tend to locate in industrial locations, sort of to evade regulation and scrutiny. So they tend to have issues around lack of building regulation sign off, lack of planning permission, potentially lack of food registration, lack of licenses for entertainment, late night refreshment, sort of the whole thing. So I think there's a big distinction to be drawn between what Ealing is seeking to achieve with its nighttime economy strategy and sort of the unwanted types of late night uses. Some shisha lounges might be licensed to serve alcohol, and they may be registered as food businesses, but others might only sell shisha alongside a very limited food menu. Again, it depends on the site. As per the slide, most of the unauthorized shisha lounges that function as nightclubs, they have quite an active social media presence. So it sort of has quite a wide draw from areas beyond the local neighborhood. So as Connor was saying, we want to try to encourage local residents to use nighttime businesses. Some of these types of businesses have a much wider draw for patrons that might be outside Ealing and outside OPDC's area. Again, some of these sites are also characterized by freeholders that can sign leases, and they generally don't want to know what's happening in planning terms. They just want to collect rent. So overall, quite problematic venues. As last year, a quick slide about the planning issues. One of the main concerns around some of these uses is that London is running out of industrial land, and commercial shisha lounges in industrial areas occupy land that could be put to compliant industrial purposes. They also tend to make large-scale redevelopment more difficult because the pattern of land use gets very fragmented in our industrial areas, and it makes land assembly more difficult. The other main issue, of course, is neighbor amenity. Like any authorized nightclub, the night comings and goings can disturb residents if there's homes in the vicinity of the property, and they could potentially give rise to antisocial behavior. Again, I draw a really strong distinction between the types of uses that Connor's talking about, where the London Plan programs particular areas that are suitable for the nighttime economy, and they tend to be regulated in terms of the hours. You get some buy-in from local residents. Unauthorized uses of this nature, they tend to have no planning controls on their hours. So definite distinction between out of center and uses that might be in the industrial area. The final impact is transport, and this can be location dependent. So clustering of unauthorized uses can lead to curbside parking and potentially block the highway. These can seem like minor issues, but for authorized users in the industrial area, it can really impact the day-to-day functioning of authorized businesses. So a summary of what the uses are. And a quick process slide. Members might remember this one from last year. This sets out the planning enforcement process for all local authorities. Members are you're probably quite familiar with it. In addition to issuing and serving planning enforcement notices to cease the shisha use, there's also some other planning enforcement tools on the left. These are only used in very specific circumstances. And as we'll come on to in a moment, the appeal process for shisha lounges can be quite lengthy. Some of the challenges in terms of site access, the uses tend to be in the evening when the planners are not at their desks. OPDC did a lot of joint working with Ealing Council in 2023, and I'll come on to where we've gotten to. But evening visits with the Metropolitan Police and Ealing Park Guard are sort of a big way that we make the assessment of these shisha lounges in planning terms. They tend to need a lot of investigation to ensure that the uses are characterized correctly, and the planning enforcement notices will stand up an appeal, and this can be quite time consuming. As members know, the enforcement process itself can be quite slow, and if an appeal is heard by way of public inquiry, it can add about a year or more to the timelines. I should add here that appeals are a standard part of the planning process, and the right to an appeal is really fundamental for all land users, landowners, even where they're unauthorized uses in planning terms. Lastly, there can be boundary impacts. This is quite true for OPDC, where we have residents that overlap with several council areas. So despite the challenges here, we did have some success in tackling some unauthorized shisha. So a quick summary for members of where we got to from last year. As members know, both Sultan and Medusa Lounge on Coronation Road, they closed about this time last year that we were updating members. OPDC did manage to get Wish Lounge closed in September 2023, following quite a lot of engagement with the landowners. So that's another site on Coronation Road. As members know, Wish Lounge was in the newspapers because of a traffic fatality that was linked to the site. So a highly problematic venue, and we were really pleased to see it close. So we really had to push the landowner, but we did get that site secured. So we did a follow-up inspection, and all the fittings and fixtures have been stripped out following the planning enforcement process. Another site that's closed since we met last is Shiva Lounge. So that was the subject of a stop notice that was issued by OPDC Planning Enforcement. We did the site visit on that one last week, and the bailiffs have now taken control of that site, and so it's on its way to being compliant. So it's really positive. So in terms of our summer program, OPDC issued planning enforcement notice this summer requiring the closure of Elite Lounge on Coronation Road, Bamboo Lounge on Western Road to the rear of the Asda site, Sahara Lounge, which is a backland site on Acton Lane next to Middlesex Hospital, Silk Lounge on Standard Road, and finally Oppa Lounge, which is a shisha venue also in Standard Road. So again, as the chair said, just a broad overview there. We can't get into particular details of those cases. OPDC also refused planning permission to extend the hours of Sand Flames Lounge in the Acton Town Centre. Members are probably surprised to learn that so of those 6 venues we enforced against, all 6 have generated an appeal. So there's been a 100% appeal rate. These cases are working their way through the planning system at the moment, and we hope when these cases are resolved, we'll see additional closures into 2024. But like I say, because those are on appeal, we can't get into details. The general feedback from residents is that with the closure of Sultan, Medusa, Wish, and Shiva on Coronation Road, the general levels of noise and disturbance in that area have decreased significantly, and OPDC's level of complaints from residents has been correspondingly gone down. So that's great to see some progress in that area. But obviously still a lot of work to do and quite a lot of other outstanding shisha lounges. As I said last year, Ealing colleagues have been a really big part of OPDC's enforcement program in this area. So Alex O'Neill, who's Ealing's planning enforcement team leader, has been really helpful in terms of sharing planning property history and site records. Ealing Council's food safety team and licensing colleagues who've assisted with joint working, including Mary McLaughlin, who is one of the team leaders, and she'll be assisting with OPDC with an upcoming planning inquiry. So we're working together to bring forward evidence to ensure that the enforcement notice is upheld and that we bring forward that site to closure. So that's sort of where we've been this year. Like I say, it's great to see all of you again, and I'm happy to take any questions you might have with respect to OPDC's shisha lounges in our area.
Anthony, you're muted.
Councillor Bicklini. Rima, you have a question?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, first, thank you so much for the information, James, regarding the shisha lounges. I'm just intrigued to know what strategies you guys employ with experienced operators who keep reopening shisha lounges. How do you tackle this specifically?
I think it sort of speaks to the appeals, doesn't it? You know, as much as you enforce, they're all going to appeal. So
no, I know that, but
yeah, but you know,
are there any kind of strategy that you could highlight to us? Perhaps an example of a specific place without, of course, naming the premises.
Yeah, I mean, as council, I think the single biggest thing that you have to do is just to stay after them. When we issue planning enforcement notices, they're not just on the current operator. So as good standard planning practice, you issue the notice both on the current operator and on a generic owner operator. So that way that if the site changes hands, and you know, some of these sites we hear that they try to flog them if they think they're going to lose their appeal, and you'll get somebody taking the site on that isn't aware of the planning history. the way that you've issued the enforcement notice, make sure that it sticks to that particular site rather than any individual operator. So that way, if an appeal is dismissed, you can proceed with potentially a prosecution against a new owner or a new operator. You know, we try to work quite closely with the operators once the appeals are concluded to make sure that we're staying on them and that we're having conversations about when they're bringing land uses to an end. But yeah, I think as our head of planning likes to say, it's you know, it's not a sprint. Like, you know, it's a very long process, and it's regulatory based. So it's, you know, making sure that we're following up and, you know, dealing with the landowners proactively when we get appeal decisions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jammeh?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much. Really enjoyed the presentation, James. I just wanted to ask you, actually, is there any particular area within the borough that is more segregated, more dominated with shisha lounges? I mean, I know you talked about Park Royal and Acton, but, you know, from my travels, I could actually mention a few others, but I just wondered.
Well, I mean, I can only speak to OPDC's area because I'm the planning enforcement officer that deals with OPDC as a local planning authority. I mean, I know that there are hotspots within Ealing outside of OPDC's areas, but really the bulk of our issue in terms of unauthorized uses of this type is within the Park Royal industrial area. That's where we've had sort of a particular cluster for some years now, and so that's why we're taking action in the way that we are.
Councillor Anand.
Thank you.
You've got your hand up. You're a person who has some insights into that area, I believe.
Thank you.
Just let's be mindful that Mr. Hughes is here for for the Park Royal Old Oak area. So really, we should only be asking him questions about that. But Praveen, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation. I just want to ask, what measures do we actually employ when we actually have evidence-based operators that actually then reapply for licensing? Because the issue is that this is always the case where operators that are in breach of planning conditions, we actually still consider the applications for licensing. Is there any scope that we have where we can actually have a separate rule for a particular area, or are we governed by statute? I think I've raised this question before, and I think Jess has actually said that there is some situations, but do we have any leeway within the OPDC area?
I mean, we have to be careful, Councillor, because planning and licensing are separate regimes. So the London Plan indicates that there is some integration between planning and licensing functions, but licensing decisions have to be taken in accordance with licensing objectives. So when we as planners take formal enforcement action against unauthorized shisha lounges, we can take into account how the venue is operated. So say, for example, if the operator isn't licensed to sell food, or they're not licensed to sell alcohol, or they don't have the appropriate TENS licenses, or they don't have building regulation sign off for their extensions, or they've not been engaging with colleagues on other areas. Planning inspectors can take that into consideration if we've issued enforcement notices for those reasons. So say, for example, if there's a site that's causing antisocial behavior, and we think it's a risk of crime or other issues, we can use licensing information that we've drawn from other areas as part of our appeal case to make sure that our notice stands up. But I think that we do have to be really clear that there is sort of a really clear distinction between what planning and licensing are seeking to achieve, and they're separate regimes from that respect.
Chair, may I just come in one secondary point on this? Hello?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, yes. Is there any scope that we have any powers to actually increase the scale of the fines? Because the fines actually, especially I know in parts of the operators, the fines are substantially much lower. They can the fines that we give them actually is just a day's earning for them, and they don't actually, it doesn't actually meet the actual crime itself. Do we have any scales that we can actually improve on that? Thank you. That's my final. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it's a good question, Councillor Nand asked. I mean, who sets the fines? Is not yourselves, is it? It's the courts that you know how meaningful, you know, how worthwhile is a £10,000 fine for a place that's been open for 18 months? Yeah, James.
I mean, I can only speak to planning, councillor. If an operator is in breach of a planning enforcement notice and they're prosecuted, you know, usually the fines can be unlimited in some cases. So it's much stronger. And, you know, the planning regime, if something's unacceptable in principle, so if a shisha lounge is located in an industrial area, then it's within the planning authority's discretion to seek the closure of the venue, to remove cease the use and to remove anything that's unauthorized from the land. That I think the powers are a little bit stronger than licensing, but again, it depends on the specifics of the case and the specific use involved.
Isabella, I'll let you hold the answer to that because you probably were ready to answer that, but just hold it for the next segment if you don't mind, because obviously it fits into the whole borough. Councillor Ahmed. Munir?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I don't know, I'm struggling with my laptop.
We can hear you well. So
okay, that's great. Yeah, my question you may be able to answer. Park Royal is not obviously a special policy area. So when there is an application from a venue for licensing, in the OPDC, do we apply the same rules as any non-special policy area, or are there any specific rules that apply to this specific OPDC area?
I think it's a good question. Perhaps Joe can put it into context.
Alison is also here, I think.
Yeah. I'm sure Alison
might be able to answer.
It's the OPDC are generally a body for planning purposes, and James will obviously step in, and and obviously with I think you're talking, Councillor, about licensing control, which as we've already discussed is something different, and so yeah, it's there isn't a separate part of the borough for licensing purposes that as there would be for planning purposes.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
I mean, we are sort of coming to sort of our new statement of licensing, so we can put that into scope. Yeah. But go. Joe, did you want to respond briefly to that?
No. Well, Alison's completely correct. Yeah, the OPDC just concerns planning, development, and obviously licensing is just according to our licensing policy. I don't think I'll add anything now, Councillor Kelly, because we're going over into the next agenda.
Yeah, fine. Yeah, so we're going to cover special policy areas, and we can. Okay. Again, very useful because it sort of it helps us sort of diffuse the networks in the council when people are approaching us saying, what are we doing about this? What are we doing about that? Because it is a major issue with people who live in the sort of Twyford Abbey area in particular, and all the residential places close to shisha lounges to the borough. You know, they do suffer from antisocial behaviour. And they often don't quite understand why things, you know, why stuff is being done on the high streets but not being done at these premises. And I think this helps us understand the frameworks as to why it's not so easy. but yet James is working on it in particular in the Park Royal area. So we thank him for that. Anybody else? So it's 20:07. Don't have any other indications. Thank you very much, Mr. Hughes, James, for coming to us, and you might become a calendar item, at least an annual calendar item, moving forward.
Thanks, Councillor. We'll see you next year, hopefully.
Yes.
Take
Okay.
care.
Thank you very much. Okay. Right. So Cornelia, help me. Right, licensing here and enforcement update report. So, Isabella, do you want to take us through this?
Yep, sure.
Thank you. We've got just introduce yourself, and obviously the hierarchy of what you do and with Joe. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. So good evening, everyone. My name is Isabella Gregory, and I've got a new title this time, which is Food Safety and Licensing Manager. And Joe now is the Head of Environmental Health and Trading Standards, who obviously oversees the work of the licensing team. I have a very brief licensing update for you tonight, and I'll make it very brief because I'm aware of the time. So the report that I've provided to you covers a 3-month period between November and January of this year. And as you would have seen from the report, we've had a large number of premises review applications with 6 decisions made by the subcommittee, resulting in 3 revocations, 2 suspensions with some additional conditions, and also 1 premises where the licensing committee felt that additional conditions alone were sufficient to make sure that to ensure that the licensing objectives were upheld. The committee has also decided in regards to 4 new applications for premises licenses, granted 3 of them with some additional conditions, and also rejected 1 license in part in regards to the supply of alcohol. Again, we see a good variety of decisions made here, which obviously reflects that the licensing subcommittee considers each application on its individual circumstances. So that's in regards to the hearings. In regards to the work of our licensing compliance officers, there were 2 notable streams of work in the 3-month period of time that we're discussing. One, acting on some shared intelligence
Isabella,
with...
would you talk a little bit slower, please?
Yeah, of course. Sorry, I'm trying to make it very brief, but it's probably too brief.
Yeah.
No problem. I'll slow down. So there were 2 notable streams of work in that period of time. One is working with our immigration officers, so carrying out joint visits with them to our licensed premises to ensure that our license holders obviously don't employ illegal workers. And the other one focused on more of a kind of a local issue in regards to increase in street drinkers in Southall. During all of those visits, license holders would obviously be accordingly advised by us, and then where significant failures noted, we would report them obviously to the licensing subcommittee to decide what action to take in regards to the licenses for these premises. And finally, I just wanted to update the committee, obviously on the commencement of the work to review our current licensing policy, which essentially sets the foundation for all of the licensing decisions and can obviously shape and influence our local economy. And as you would have heard, this on purpose coincides with the nighttime economy strategy, the NTES, as you called it, because we need to ensure that our licensing policy reflects the needs of our residents and the council and businesses aspirations. At the same time, we also need to review our cumulative impact areas, known as special policy areas, which we have 5 of those in the borough. So we need to make a decision on whether we should keep them, amend them, or obviously have no more special policy areas in place. To ensure that all of the licensing committee decisions are valid, we need to do all of this by the time that our current licensing policy expires. which is 26th of July of next year. And I know it sounds like it's a long time by the time that policy expires, but there's quite a bit of work to be done. And within the report, I provided you with a very brief overview of what you can expect at what's throughout the next 12 months. At the next licensing committee meeting, hopefully we'll have a bit more of an update with regards to the nighttime economy strategy. And obviously I can update you on some of the sections of the policy that are likely to change. There will be a lot more conversations, obviously, in regards to the licensing policy renewal. So for the time being, I'll just hand it back to you, Councillor Kelly.
That's thank you very much, Isabella. I've got indication. Yeah, obviously I want to make some points and ask the committee generally some questions. But Councillor Ball, do you have a question to Isabella?
Yeah, I mean, really, it's sort of linking this point back to the previous item. Would there be any mileage in thinking about a new special policy area for the Park Royal area, where there are specific problems with these industrial premises? I mean, obviously some of them are completely unlicensed, but where there is a licensing use and it's an area where they cause particular problems, would that be worth thinking about?
Just hold that for a moment, Isabella, because it may talk to the next points I'm going to make. Councillor Driscoll.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, just looking at that report about the enforcement actions. I mean, I know there has been comms and press about the enforcement actions with vaping and other interventions in that department, which is always great to see, because I think it acts as a reassurance that licensing is an active service rather than being passive, which is probably addresses people's concerns about what they think of a license activities is. So it'd be great to see some sort of press coverage of these enforcement actions, just so it's a reassurance that licensing is an active and monitoring role rather than just quite passive, that a rubber stamps an application, because that would be a reassurance, and it's always helpful to have that comms going out. So, and well done for all those enforcement. I mean, it's quite surprising when you see the immigration details coming through and the amount in fines and so on. You know, it's really significant. So thanks for all the hard work there.
Thank you, Councillor. Just noted.
Yeah, so John, just picking up from John's point, and it was alluded to by Councillor Jammu, Councillor Ahmed, about adopting special policy areas in other places. So just sort of taking your suggestion to a certain conclusion, you would then have to perhaps have a special policy area in Park Royal, and in Perryville, and you might have to have it in little spots in Greenford and little places perhaps in Southall, and who knows, even little places in Eden Common that might have shisha lounges. I don't know. Unlikely, but they may exist. So that sort of is a movable, it's. So my question is really to you, John, and Councillor Ball and other councillors. What's great about what is it you think is useful about the special policy areas? They have been, I think, successful, but is it the activity that it applies to, or is it the actual location? Is it the activity, i.e. off licenses and shisha lounges, or is it the fact that we've got a particular problem in a particular area? John.
Yeah, I mean, I think there does seem to be a particular problem in the Park Royal area with these shisha lounges, doesn't there? Which isn't replicated everywhere that there's a shisha lounge. There does seem to be that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be knocking areas, but there's a particular problem in Perryville as well, I would say.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The only thing I would mention is quite often those premises, they don't undertake any licensable activities because shisha isn't licensable, or when they do, they hide it really well. So even if the policy was in place, I'm not sure what kind of effect it would have on the shisha issues. For us to pass a special policy area, there's quite a high threshold to meet. And what we're working on at the moment is gathering all of that intelligence that will actually inform whether we have any basis to pass it and to implement them, or whether there isn't any issue that would suggest that we could implement those. So I think at the moment it's very much just gathering information and seeing it. But like I said, in terms of the shisha premises, I'm not sure it will have a massive impact.
Yeah, because when we done the special policy areas, there's lots of data from London ambulance services, fire brigade, police teams, environmental health. Lots and lots of stakeholders have to fit into it, and if it doesn't stack up statistically, then it just doesn't. It goes back to my question about the activity. Is it the activity within these places, and that activity exists elsewhere in other parts of the borough? The special policy area appears, in my view, to be useful to apply to particular activities as opposed to the area itself. And I think that's something the committee should be, we should be looking at. Councillor, I don't know who was, Joe, I'll let you respond to that, and then I'll come to Councillor Shaw.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. It's just to supplement what Isabella's saying, really. The stepping off point where we're at now is we've given a specification and scoped out how we want to begin the quite detailed analysis of the crime data, the London ambulance data, etc. And what we want to be able to do is to slice that data in quite a nuanced way, because, for example, if you look at alcohol-related assaults, are they occurring at the time when the nighttime economy strategy occurs, 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., or are the most frequent ones 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. or during the day, or say, are they most prevalent around street drinker demographics, so it's off licenses, etc. So we will have a very enhanced evidence-based data analysis that we will have available for the committee to actually kind of base a discussion on some of the actual data, because I think it can be like, even us with the officer conversations we're having, we're kind of mindful of some of the bias that we're adding just because we're talking about what we've experienced rather than what the data is. But we will have that really detailed data analysis to go ahead on, and as Isabella says, that is the criteria in any case to formally adopt a special policy area or cumulative impact area, whatever you want to call it. I think the other thing I would just say is, one of the issues we have with, say, like shisha lounges is a very good example as a regulatory issue, is that we want to bring premises into the framework of regulation. So it's kind of like, if you have a shisha, we can talk about shisha lounges, because I'm happy to say officially they disproportionately feature crime, antisocial behaviour, etc., compared to other premises types that aren't shisha lounges. That's the experience in the borough. But if we get a shisha lounge make an application, it's the kind of regulator's dilemma about, well, we want to be permissive to bring them into the frameworks of regulation that the Licensing Act provides, but on the other hand, we may want to refuse the application because of issues raised by the responsible authorities, etc. So there is something in there about bringing premises into a framework of regulation. The wider aspect on shisha lounges is across London, a number of authorities are feeding back to the Department of Levelling Up, etc., about how shisha smoking might be brought in. So our officer kind of judgment and preference is that smoking tobacco in a premises is brought in as a licensable activity in of itself, and that way we can actually get these premises under a regulatory regime. The big problem with the Perivale and Park Royal and those Coronation Road shisha lounges is they're in light industrial areas. They are effectively unregulated spaces. If a shisha lounge opened up on Ealing Broadway and attempted some of the non-compliance that they do in these unregulated areas, all the agencies would be all over them. But unfortunately, the reality is in these kind of unregulated spaces, it's been difficult. But yeah, I mean, OPDC and the officers involved with all of that enforcement need to be applauded, because it's such a, we often the officers need to bring a kind of detachment of police officers to actually assist them getting into the premises, getting the information and so on. So yeah, Shisha and special policy areas, I think a lot of this will come out in the data analysis that we're doing, and we'll have a different prisms which we look at the data, which should inform the committee. Thanks.
Right. Yeah. So it won't be just my anecdotal observations. It will
I didn't. That almost sounded offensive. I didn't mean it like that. I just meant we're.
I know they'll draw. I'm confident they'll draw the same conclusion. So there we are. Gareth, Councillor Shaw.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think Joe's actually just covered off most of what I was going to comment on, which is the almost sort of contradictory position that we're in terms of we've heard about opening up the nighttime economy and expanding use, and yet we're also talking about sort of now creating perhaps new special licensing zones which are more highly regulated. So I think there's a real tightrope to sort of walk here and make sure that we get it right so it works for everyone. And I think also we have to sort of look at just responsible operators and operations, and this is some people are more responsible, whether it's running a pub, whether it's running a restaurant or whatever, or an off license. We know that it can very much be down to the management themselves, and so we've got to make sure that we do encourage the better operators and people who are, whether it's fit and proper persons, if you like, in the language, or people who are just better organised and are prepared to run things more willingly and work with us as a licensing authority.
I'll hear you, Chair.
For sure. I'll obviously, thank you for that, Councillor Shaw. Councillor Ahmed, did you want a question?
Yes, yes, I do want to come in. And the disadvantage for last speaker is that everything is more or less covered. Isabella really covered the first part, and then Joe actually took everything else. The problem with Perivale and Park Royal is not actually that they're not in the special policy area. The problem is that Shisha is not a licensable activity, and under the umbrella of Shisha, the drug and lots of licensable activities are done, and a lot of criminality is attracted by the Shisha lounges. So I think we need to focus more on bringing Shisha as a licensable activity, rather than bringing these areas under special policy area. And I think that will cover if Shisha becomes a licensable activity. Thank you.
Thank you. Alleged criminality, allegedly. Obviously, we're not the prosecutors, but your point is well made, Councillor Ahmed. Special policy area for an activity that's not licensed. Councillor Gallant.
Thank you very much, Chair. Actually, the other day I had a chair for Macmillan, the cancer group, and I'm sorry it sounds a bit off piece, but one of the things that came up was Shisha, and about the health risks of Shisha in certain communities, which is just really started because we had two people from the Somali community at that meeting. And there's grave concern that what people think is actually just a bit of entertainment is actually a major health risk. And one of the reasons is that, I'm sure panel's aware, but Shisha is actually 200 times more potent than normal cigarette smoking. So in a sense, it is a different activity. It could be licensable because it's sold by the premises, and it's actually something you buy on the premises. Very expensive, by the way. But when it came down to it, you'd end up with a situation. You'd be hard pushed to actually say what's the difference between smoking your own cigarettes or your own pipe tobacco or your own cigars and smoking shisha. So making it into a licensable activity, that would have to be a national resolution, or there'd have to be legislation probably that went into it, wouldn't there?
Yeah, I think we'd probably have to rewrite the licensing act, which maybe it's time, it'd be 20 years old next year.
Well, I think we could, if the way we could differentiate is that you could only smoke shisha if you actually bought it on the premises. Like, you know, the way you go into a bar, you usually can't take your own bottle of wine in there. Sometimes you can, but you usually can't. And so if you said you can only smoke shisha that's sold by the premises, and then it comes into all the controls, and it comes into the industry standards, and then I could see a way through that. But I think we need to invoke people well beyond the lines of the borough, don't we?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you make a good point. I mean, how vaping has become the new talking point. Yet shisha is sort of still. Well, shisha's not, is it? Yeah. When perhaps.
But it is in certain communities, but you know, I don't know. We represent a lot of communities here tonight, but some of them we don't, and in some communities, shisha is of grave concern across the genders as well.
Great, thank you, Councillor Jammeh. You're clapping, or have you got your hand up? Or no, hand gone down. That's fine. I think just legacy hand. Okay. So generally on the.
Sorry, apologies, Chair. I was having IT issues here. I was actually praising Councillor Gallant for raising that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay. So, any other questions relating to the?
Yes, Chair.
Yeah, Councillor Bacchini.
Yes, I'm just thinking out loud, thinking how we could really do something about the shisha lounges in Park Royal specifically, with the amount of antisocial behavior and the amount of all the parking problems. Many incidents also where police had to be called to help the licensing officers do whatever they have to do. So I really hope that we could implement a strategy that could enforce a better way of dealing with these premises.
Yeah, Joe.
Yeah, I agree entirely, Councillor Bacchini. I think one of the things, which is why I'm, very pleased to see OPDC coming here every year, and this is really a credit to the officers, Isabella, and they mentioned one of our officers, Mary McLaughlin, who I think is known possibly to every shisha operator in the borough, because I think she's been in every premises. But one of the things that Ealing has developed, along with partners such as the police and all of our internal teams, is we often are doing kind of full spectrum approaches. So we will go out and do operations that involve parking, community safety, food officers, licensing officers, trading standards officers, etc., to really go to look at everything that's going on at a premises, because generally there is a huge overlap in non-compliance. So we have a regular well, it's not even a trickle, it's just a regular current of smoke-free prosecutions coming through where these premises are failing to prevent smoking in an enclosed area. The issue with the legislation is the fine is $2,500 per offence, and there isn't anything else that we can issue in relation to that. Even Paul Murphy's community safety team, they have in the past with the police served those community protection notice things to actually close the premises or restrict its opening hours. So I think what we're doing is we're trying to use some of our council teams to deal with things, you know, on a kind of piecemeal basis as we find them, and some smoke-free prosecutions. But the end resolution lies with James's team and with our own internal planners, which is what my teams deal with is, this premises is here, is it complying with the relevant laws while it's in operation? James's team goes to the most fundamental question about, this shouldn't even be here in the first place, so how can we stop it from operating? And I think, as James says, there is no quick strategy to this. It's just perseverance. We shut one down, another one opens up, and we keep going through it. And so, yeah, there isn't, everyone, all of my equivalents across the London boroughs are looking for the silver bullet. I don't think it really exists, but I do know that we have probably one of the best kind of collaborations, certainly in Northwest London, for dealing with this kind of thing. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Thanks, Councillor Kelly.
The only thing I would just add to it is, Joe highlighted that I think is that partnership work really that disrupts that illegal activity, and that is really working. Pre-COVID, we had about 65 shisha premises in Ealing. Now we are about half that amount, about 30. So I think whatever we're doing is definitely disrupting it and is having some outcomes.
Thank you. Councillor Anand?
Thank you, Chair. Just very, very quickly, to just go over most of the points that's been discussed. I think if we can really emphasize the fact that when we take prosecutions, we bring joint prosecutions to the landowner, then the emphasis of giving that permission initially to renting out will be a very disadvantage to the landowner. So in every prosecution, if we just don't prosecute the operator, but we also join as a co-defendant, the landowner, I think we will actually start beating this crime. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think it's fair to say we can learn lessons from you know, OPDC and vice versa, and continue to do so. Right, so it's 20:34, just after 8:30. Councillor Nann's still got his hand up, but it's a legacy hand. It's gone down. That's great. Right, councillors, we've good to see Mr. Hughes is still here, so hopefully he'll have taken some of those comments on board. Shisha has been the dominant item of this evening's conversation. Yes, so before we go to the work programme, do we have any more matters? Anything else? Cornelia?
No,
No?
that's the other 3 items covered.
Yes,
so
sure.
it's work
Yeah.
program.
I've done them in reverse order tonight, as you can see, but I think it worked well. Okay, so yeah, meeting Tuesday, 7th of May. Obviously, we'll confirm that date. License enforcement, updates from Connor, and introduction to the consideration of the new draft policy area. So it's introducing a consideration for a draft. So that's quite very non-committal, but
I think what that means, Councillor Kelly, we will have some sections that we highlight that we'll be revising.
I know. Yeah, no, that's great. But yeah, so we're looking. It's going to be a year's amount of work, so it's going to be adopted the following year. So just to sort of thank everyone. You know, putting those slides together with Connor's work tonight and the OPDC work. You know, there was a lot of to and fro because there's a lot of active subcommittee applications going on. So as much as we have to do that piece of work separately. So thanks very much to Cornelia for in particular for getting it out to us when you did. And you've got applauses from members there. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. You're welcome.
So any more? Councillor Allison, have we covered everything? I always like to check with legal.
Yes, I think we have, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I don't see any more indications from anyone. So thank you very much for attending, your comments, and thank you for all your work on the subcommittees. Thank you. Have a good
Thank
evening.
you for sharing.
You're welcome. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
I'd also
Thank
like
you,
to say
Chair.
thanks
Good night.
to those
Thank
for
you.
sharing.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
See you tomorrow night. You can